What's going on, y'all? Just imagine if the Democrat socialists got what they wanted. Not the slogan, not the soundbite, but what if they got what they actually propose in their platform? So today, we are going to take them at their word. You know, when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. We're going to take them at their word and ask a simple question. What if they got what they wanted? Is this really their vision, the future they envision for America? We got a lot to get into, so let's get after it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the Mission Ready Men briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where faith in God is the standard and masculinity is not toxic. Today is Tuesday, July 13th in the year of our Lord 2026. And we have a ton to get into. And I know I always say there's so much, I'm not going to get to it. Well, I'm not even trying. I'm not even trying to get to it. There's just so much to talk about. So we're going to get to what I get to, and we'll see what happens the rest of the week. Excuse me. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all the algorithm things. Help us to continue the march and reach as many people as we possibly can. Every like, every click, every subscription, every comment, all of that matters. So please help us out and do that. And if you could do the same on the Mission Ready Men briefing individual channel, that would help us out a lot there as well. As I said, we have a lot to get into. And we are going to talk about Lindsey Graham later on. You all know all about what's going on there. So I didn't feel the need to lead off with it, but we will talk about it later on. What I wanted to talk about, obviously, you saw the title and description. What if they got what they wanted? Well, then the question for a lot of people, I guess, is what do they want? If you haven't read the platform, I suggest you do. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to go over it. But I suggest you read it for yourself, because it's it's something. But they dropped their new revised platform, and it says workers deserve more. And I guess they mean it. I don't know if they mean it for the workers, but they do want more power, more control, and they basically want to rewrite, if not completely just scrap altogether, the Constitution. And we're seeing a lot of Democrat socialists start to win some of these elections. Obviously, Mamdani in New York, he's doing a bang-up job there. He promised rent control, and now they just reach an all-time high in rent. So we're not going to get into that. That's a story for another time, but we will talk about that because that's interesting. But all the primaries that they swept in New York, this is not the socialism that we all grew up wary of. This is not your grandfather's socialism. This is the version that wants to abolish the Senate, wants to abolish the Electoral College, abolish the Supreme Court, and defund the military. They look at that and say, yeah, we don't need any of that. So we're gonna get into all of that. As I said, they want to abolish the Senate. They want to scrap the Electoral College. They want to make the president and, well, they really want to abolish the Supreme Court. But if the Supreme Court survives their version of government, they want it subservient to Congress. They want to, and I'm sure you've heard this from them before, they want to abolish the carceral forces of the capitalist state. So what that means is they want to get rid of police and prisons. We saw Darlisa Chevalier in New York talk about getting rid of prisons altogether. She didn't think murderers and rapists and all the other violent criminals that need to be separated from society. She didn't think that there's a need to do that. I mean, when you just think about some of the things that they propose, just on a basic, just first order thinking, well, even that, how do you come to the conclusion that there's no need for it? And I always talk about this when it comes to leftists. They never ask the then what. It's it's astonishing, really. Absolutely astonishing. But this is not something that, this is not them tinkering around the edges of and trying to make things better on the margins. That's not what they're doing. They want to completely demolish the system and rebuild it from the ground up in their communist image. And they have to get rid of the Constitution in order to do that, because the founders, in all their wisdom, they put safeguards in to guard against this type of thing. I got a ton of clips of some of these DSA lunatics. Let's start with this one.
These are the co-chairs of the DSA.
Many Americans understand that the democracy that we have right now isn't working for them. I don't think our platform would get rid of the president, but it would replace the Electoral College.
We would not have open borders tomorrow, but we want a world in which all working people are taken care of, every basic necessity, so that we don't need a militarized border.
I mean, so you take out the Supreme Court, the Senate, the executive, ICE. You take, am I missing anything? I can't add to the tally, if you will, but it strikes me that they see a future here where the only folks left are the House.
No, please.
And that is what they think, because the platform that they put out publicly is softened language compared to what they compared to what they have actually internally. There was a report, and I can't remember the outlet, but there was a report that actually got a copy or was involved in a meeting where they talked about all of the policies that they're actually pursuing. Like the platform that you read publicly doesn't say anything about getting rid of the Senate, but that is on their agenda. They and this is something that I've talked about before. They have this flowery language and this euphemistic language to hide the truth of what they want. To hear them talk about it, they don't want to get rid of, or you heard that young woman talk about they didn't want to get rid of the presidency, but that is in the documents that they circulate internally. This is marketing. This is marketing 101. It's so casual in the way they deliver it that people who aren't paying attention to this are going to say, "Oh well, maybe that's not so bad." Until, of course, reality sets in. So this is communism with a smiley face filter on it, so people don't pay attention to what's underneath. Let's see if we can pull up the actual well, no, we don't have. I'm not going to pull up the whole PDF. You won't be able to see it if I show it to you anyway. But let's take a look at this. This is an infographic that breaks down, and it's still going to be kind of hard for you to see, I guess, but they want to abolish the Senate, implement proportional representation and ranked choice voting in all elections, and abolish the Senate. Ranked choice voting is another one that's just stupid on its face. They want to replace the president and the Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. What they're describing is a communist dictatorship. Defund the War Department, end all foreign wars, and close overseas military bases. Now, this is an interesting one, because in the platform that you can actually read online, they talk about how they want peace. They want to end all conflict. If you defund the War Department, all of that conflict overseas is coming here. The only reason all of these terrorists haven't wreaked even more havoc on our soil is because of our military and our police, which they also want to get rid of. And you think that by getting rid of all the layers of protection that we have, able to inflict violence on those that want to do us harm, you think getting rid of that is going to inspire peace? These people are living in fantasy land. We talked about abolish the carceral state. Free Palestine, another one. These same people who talk about peace and and getting rid of the police and all that. They want a free Palestine. These are the same people that in their at their rallies and stuff like that, they fly the Palestinian flag and they chant from the river to the sea. They want to end economic sanctions on our enemies. They want to abolish ICE and grant amnesty for all. I think we heard him mention that. So they just want open borders, and they want everyone who can make it here to get here and then take part in all of the benefits that this country has to offer, just based on the sheer fact of being here. Where is all this money going to come from? How are they going to pay for this? If you were to tax all of the millionaires and billionaires at 100%, if you were to confiscate all of their wealth, you would be able to run the country the way it is right now for less than a week. And then what? There's that first order thinking again. Then what? The millionaires and billionaires, you took all their money. It's going to take longer than that for them to make more. So then what? Well, of course, they have no answer for that. And public ownership of major corporations. That is communism. And you have these anchors like Caitlin Collins and all these other empty-headed talking heads on anchors on all these different networks. This is communism. And they can't or won't acknowledge it. And we talked about the Free Palestine and all that. This is the red-green alliance that I've talked about so many times. This is the red-green alliance in their documentation. And if any of this were to happen, if any of this were to come to pass the way they want it to, all of the non-Muslims involved in this are going to get beheaded, are going to get thrown off roofs. Yeah, I'm talking about the LGBT alphabet mafia community, all of that, gone. Unless, of course, they convert. These people are ridiculous. This is their end game, and they're done hiding it. They're done hiding it. And I don't know about you, but we can't let this happen, because as I said, just imagine if this were to happen. Oh, thank you all for being in the chat. I really appreciate it. It is wonderful to have you here. Maybe you'll learn something. Probably not, but thanks for being here anyway. And thanks to the moderators for holding it down in the chat and keeping everybody in line. But this is the thing. If you're not paying attention now, if you're just blowing this off as fear mongering or this will never happen because America, well, you're missing the entire boat. You have lost the plot. Because what we have, we're in the situation we're in because not enough of us fought to keep our liberties and to keep our freedom, and not enough of us fought for it. And now we are in a fight, and because we sat so long on the sidelines, and because so many of us refused to get engaged, now we're on the ropes. And this is not a Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope situation. This is George Foreman beating the snot out of Ken Norton. Oh boy. If you really think that this is just typical political maneuvering and there's absolutely nothing wrong with what the DSA is trying to advance in this platform, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Because I love this country. I don't want to fundamentally transform it. Could things be better in certain areas? Absolutely, of course. No country is perfect because no person is perfect. And because no one is perfect, things run imperfectly because there's people running it. That's just the way it is. But yes, things could be better, but name me a country that implemented anything on this scale that is better off for it. Name me one. Name me a country that implemented anything like this that didn't end up murdering a significant portion of its citizenry. I'll wait. Because they do, the DSA is fully on board with gun control. Fully on board with gun control. And a disarmed citizenry is a citizenry they can control. Because they will have all the guns and you will be subjects. All right, let's move on because we got, like I said, we got a ton to get into, and we will talk about the whole gun control thing a little bit later. I hadn't planned on talking about that, but I came across something like a half an hour before I was set to go on, and so I need to talk about that. But before we do, let's get a word in from our sponsor, and our sponsor for today's show is Burning It Up Hat Company. If you're going to wear a cowboy hat, wear one that means something. And Burning It Up built me a custom Navy hat, and it fits like it was made for me because it was. Clean lines, sharp crown, great look. I love it. It's not something that you grab off the shelf or anything like that. It's built by a woman who knows her craft. So if you want to stand out and stand up without saying a word, get your hat at Burning It Up Hat Company, burningituphatcompany.com. Built right, worn proud. All right. So as everybody knows at this point, Lindsey Graham passed away unexpectedly at the age of 71 after what they termed a brief and sudden illness. Turns out he suffered an aortic dissection. the reaction to his passing, I would say it was shocking, but of course after we saw what happened with Charlie Kirk and the way they reacted, nothing could possibly be more shocking than that. And we've seen it throughout recent history. We saw how they celebrated when Rush Limbaugh passed away. I talked about Charlie Kirk. You can just go down the list of conservative voices that passed away, and they just rejoice, openly mock. Proverbs 24 says, "Do not rejoice when your enemy falls." He was a polarizing figure on the right, for sure. And he had some good moments. Most notably, I think, was his defense of Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearing. People describe that as one of his most iconic moments. The one that stands out most to me is when this woman was, and I think this had to do with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, this woman was shouting at him and he was getting into his car and he made a comment and straightened his tie, and that was one of my favorites. But of course, I disagreed with him a lot. And I'm not trying to lionize him as some great conservative, some great MAGA person who I completely aligned with on every subject. That's not the case. But he did spend decades in the Senate, and he was a somewhat reliable conservative vote on a lot of issues. But he may not have been the most America first senator that we had. And I think we can say that honestly without trashing and celebrating his passing. Because everyone is made in the image and likeness of God. And that means their lives have value. And that's true regardless of who we're speaking about. Some people make it exceedingly difficult to keep that in mind. I will grant you that. But at the end of the day, as a Christian, that's the approach that I have to take. And just on a human decency level, I mean, I don't think you have to be a Christian to understand that somebody passing, there's going to be family and friends who are mourning his loss. And to me, it just seems like common human decency to respect that. And to not post stuff online talking about how elated they are that someone died. And within hours of his passing, there were numerous people who completely mocked his passing. Most notably, was Anna Kasparian. Now she posted good riddance on X after it was announced that he passed away. And of course she got roasted on X for that. And this was her response: "Are you offended? Let me clarify. I'm elated that he's dead, overjoyed, just like he was elated at seeing countless dead children throughout the Middle East. And there were other posts talking about karma and all this other stuff. Anna Kasparian, her and everyone who celebrated like this, they're just demonic ghouls. And I know that there was a period of time there where people thought Anna Kasparian was coming around because she was on the right side of the whole trans issue. And I said then, just wait. She is not a conservative. She never will be a conservative. She's right on this particular issue, but just wait. And this isn't the first thing. I mean, this isn't the first thing at all, but this is perhaps the most ghoulish for sure. Now, there's a guy by the name of Michael Ian Black who used to be on X, and I followed him on X, and we got into a few exchanges about things a few years ago. He left and he went over to Pedo Sky. And he actually the thing that he wrote on Substack was not as ghoulish a response as I expected from him. But Blue Sky, Pedo Sky did not disappoint when it comes to their reactions, because, you know, it's just a leftist cesspool. And I have an account there because I want to see what these lunatics say. And it's, I do not recommend it. I really don't recommend going over there. And I'm not there a lot, but I went over there because I wanted to see what they were saying about this. The Onion posted let's see if I can pull it up. Paramedics praised for being too late to save Lindsey Graham. These people are just demonic. And I'm not, there's one more. You can't really see this one, but this one says, Democrats reacting to the sudden death of Lindsey Graham isn't a celebration as much as a rehearsal. And I think we all know what they mean by that. And then the responses to that are just as demonic, just as ghoulish. This is who they are. This is who they are. And as I said before, they have done this with Rush Limbaugh, Charlie Kirk. If you're celebrating, if you're rejoicing at the death of your opponent, that reveals so much more about you than it does the person who's passing you're celebrating. That shows a deep brokenness in your soul. Because as much as I can't stand Anna Kasparian and Chunk Uyghur and some of these other leftists who have been celebrating his death and and others. It's really mind-blowing. And a lot of people are bringing up in response to this reaction, well, remember when Trump celebrated Robert Mueller's death? People bring that up like it's some sort of like it's some sort of gotcha or flex, because pretty much everyone condemned that from President Trump. Nobody agreed with that. Nobody celebrated that. Now, I did say on this show when it happened, I completely disagree with it. I condemn it. But on a certain level, you have to understand why he said what he said. And people may see that as agreeing or celebrating, but that's just not true. And nobody on the right condoned that from President Trump. So yeah, he said that, and he shouldn't have. And just like Anna Kasparian and all the rest of these fools shouldn't be saying what they're saying. Just like everyone who celebrated Charlie Kirk's death shouldn't have done that. The same applies to President Trump. And what else you got? Now, one of the things surrounding this, when it first happened, before any reports came out, there was speculation that there may have been some foul play involved. And given all of the circumstances, everything that's going on, especially with Mitch McConnell and everything else, it's easy to fall into that trap. A person whose commentary I generally respect and like, floated the idea that Lindsey Graham was attacked with a direct energy weapon. He was a 71-year-old man who had heart disease, and his aorta ruptured. There's no evidence to suggest anything else. We are living in an era right now where conspiracy theories abound on all kinds of subjects. Unless the FBI uncovers something sinister, it looks to me like a natural, albeit untimely, death. There is I don't know what's going on with what happened just then, but we're back. The Senate, the FBI is investigating. They investigate the death of any sitting senator, regardless of circumstances. I suspect there's not going to be anything that turns up other than what the preliminary autopsy said, which was an aortic rupture. It's sad. I feel sad for his family. I feel sad for his sister, who was just appointed to take his place for the remainder of his term. His friends, his family. I feel for all of that, and we should pray for their comfort during this time. And I would say the same thing if something were to happen to any leftist senator, leftist commentator, because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, we are all made in the image and likeness of God. All of our lives are valuable. And who are we to take pleasure in their suffering, their passing, and the suffering of their families who are left behind? That to me is the cruelest part. The person who passed away, hopefully they're in heaven, and I pray that he was right with God, and that's where he is right now. There's a lot of people online saying the opposite. I'll just leave it at that. FX noise, yes. Yes, I did. And I said as much on this show. Chris, I said he was 71. You obviously weren't paying attention, but you're probably a leftist, so stands to reason. Anyway. We are in a very polarized situation right now, politically. As Christians, we are supposed to speak truth, pursue justice, and reject this spirit of hatefulness and vengeance that and glee when people are suffering. And so on a human level, I mourn the loss of Lindsey Graham, just like most normal people, and send prayers and condolences for his family and friends, and hopefully they find comfort in him being with the Lord at this time. I don't know what his beliefs were, but I hope and pray that he, like I said, that he was right with God. All right. Speaking of untimely deaths, we are going to talk about someone else who was who left this earth far too soon. The trial, or the preliminary hearing for the murderer of Charlie Kirk, took place last week. Tyler Robinson was charged with aggravated murder, which carries a death penalty in Utah. And the preliminary hearing, the probable cause hearing, which takes the place of grand juries in other jurisdictions. Like New York and California have grand juries. Utah has a preliminary hearing where they establish probable cause, whether or not this is going to go to trial. It's pretty obvious this is going to go to trial. And so we're going to get into the evidence that they presented and compare and contrast it with the ridiculous, utterly ridiculous conspiracy theories that the candy cult and some of the other lunatics online are floating. The prosecutors in this case, they presented surveillance footage, forensics, digital evidence, witness statements, and it was all very compelling. Now, the defense They focused on DNA handling, ballistics, reliability, handling of some evidence. The prosecution also presented the recorded interview of the transferee roommate, and the family, Charlie Kirk's family, they pushed for transparency to let all of it be shown to the public. For some reason, I should say for some reason, I thought that the judge was just delaying, but I recently actually came across it just before about an hour before we came on, that the defense asked for this delay. I'm sorry, the prosecution asked for this delay. So we're not going to get a ruling until September. I think it's a foregone conclusion that this is going to trial. The candy cult has said that there was no evidence that Tyler Robinson was ever on the UVU campus. Video evidence that was presented in court shows that he was there several times, entering the the parking lot, entering a wooded area, returning from the wooded area, appearing later in different clothes, but identified by his mother and his roommate. The prosecution and the conspiracy theorists are saying that the person that you see up on the roof, getting in the prone position and then running and jumping off the roof is not Tyler Robinson. The video evidence is not conclusive on that specific incident. Yes, that's true. But the DNA, his confession, all of that serves to completely debunk any of these conspiracy theories that these people are floating. One of the biggest problems that I have with the conspiracy theories is the 30-06 rifle. So many people were talking about how if he was shot with a 30-06, it would have blown his head clean off. No. No, no, no. Now with the rifle, his fingerprints are on it. His DNA is on it. 1 trillion times more likely that it is from Robinson than anyone else. That's conclusive evidence. There's DNA on a towel and a screwdriver on the roof. But the ballistics is what a lot of people are stuck on. Now, Remington, the ATF and the ballistics experts in this case said that the rounds used were most likely Remington 30-06, 150 grain core lock, jacketed soft points. This is classic. This is what hunters use. And Tyler Robinson is known to have hunted with his family. Now, the thing is, when these types of rounds come in contact with tissue and bone, they mushroom very rapidly. And when they mushroom like that, it dumps all of the energy into the target. It's designed not to exit if it's doing its job properly. These soft lead tips are designed not to leave that type of exit wound. And the other thing is that they say that because no projectile was recovered from his body, that means the bullet fragments that they did recover didn't match the weapon. That's not what they said. They said that the match was inconclusive because of the fragmentation, because it did the job that Tyler Robinson intended for it to do. So when I hear people talk about how he couldn't have been shot with a 30-06 because there was no exit wound or his head was still attached, it just tells me that you don't know what you're talking about. You have no idea. You're just going by the Candy Cults and Ian Carroll's and all these other whack jobs. You're just going by what they're spoon feeding you, and probably buying their merch to boot. Now, of course, the defense is going to question the round, question the fragmentation, question the DNA and all of that. That's their job. Okay, fine. But why isn't the defense entertaining any of these? Why isn't the defense entertaining any of these notions? It doesn't make any sense. If these conspiracy theories were so valid, you would think the defense would be all over it, but they're not. The defense is not entertaining any of this lunacy. They said that the defense said they've gotten a number of these theories and tips, and they're not entertaining any of it because there's no evidence to support any of it. And they're not offering any alternative theory as to who did it. Now, maybe that's something that they'll bring up in trial, maybe. But I did hear legal analysts say that they think this is all about making sure that he doesn't get the death penalty because they basically conceded that he did it. And if he was a patsy, as Candace Owens has floated, and I've said this before, why would he admit to it? Why would he admit to it? Why would his father turn him in if he didn't confess to it? Why would his mother identify him in the videos? Yeah, people are saying they didn't call him in court. She didn't identify him in court. She identified him when they were questioned and they showed her the footage. She didn't need to, but details. And if Charlie Kirk was such a good friend to Candace Owens and some of these other people who are floating this nonsense, why are they doing everything they possibly can to exonerate the guy who is accused of killing him? Even if you don't think he did it, why throw all this stuff out there in the hopes of getting this kid off? Because that leaves, there's no justice for Charlie Kirk if he's such a good friend of yours. None of this makes any sense. None of this conspiracy theorist nonsense makes any sense unless you're just a demonic, evil wench. Which is how I have describe Candace Owens in light of all this nonsense. Between the video, the DNA, the confessions verbally and online, there is no evidence that has been presented to suggest accomplices, conspiracies. The DNA is on his rifle. He wrote a note that was accidentally leaked. That wasn't supposed to be shown, but it was accidentally leaked, saying that he targeted Charlie Kirk due to hatred. You have to be willfully ignorant. You have to just want to not know the truth to buy into any of this. These people just ignore, misrepresent facts, say they're close in their investigations, but if you buy this mug or if you buy this T-shirt and come back tomorrow, we'll have the truth for you. 10 months later, and the truth is in that Utah courtroom. These people, man, it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. So we're just gonna have to wait and see. Wait and see what happens. I fully expect it to go to trial. I fully expect him to be found guilty, barring some bombshell revelation, barring some new evidence from Candace Owens, who can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Jews did it, or the Egyptians did it, or the French legionnaires did it, or a combination of the three, because reasons. I mean, it's insane. It's just insane. And I feel sorry for anyone who buys into this. Anyway, let's move on, because there's a few other things I do want to get to. Yeah, let's do this real quick. I was going to talk about the Nolan Wells situation, and we'll get to that, because I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But there was another fatal ICE shooting in Maine. And there's been speculation, or not speculation, there was reporting that the person who was shot was here legally and not the target of the operation. But now there's also reporting that that wasn't true, and that DHS has since said that he was here illegally. That hasn't been widely reported. It could be, it could be wrong. It's been reported on the Blaze, and they have been pretty reliable in terms of being accurate in the years that I've been reading and following them. So we'll see. But let's get into this real quick, because there have been 2 fatal shootings by ICE in the past week. We had one in Houston, and then on July 7th or 8th, and we had this one in Maine. And in Houston, the person who was shot was a Mexican national, lived in the US for a long time, but he didn't stop when he was being detained by ICE. They tried to stop him. He took off, ignored commands, and he rammed an unmarked vehicle and then tried to run over an officer who fired in self-defense. Witnesses, people who were in the van, claim the shots came through the passenger window. We'll see. We'll see. Ben Crump is on the scene. He's on the case. So we'll see what that race hustler has to say. As soon as he's involved, I immediately dismiss anything he has to say. And we're going to get into Ben Crump a little later as well. The fact that there's no video is unfortunate. I don't know if they just haven't released it yet, or if they weren't wearing body cams. I hope they were, and I hope that they do release it. Not releasing it immediately is kind of fuels the conspiracy theories that they were wrong. They haven't been. I mean, the shootings that we know about with Renee Good and Preddy and some of the others, they were all good shoots to me. You try to run over a cop with a car, and there is a very good chance that you will get shot. That's just the way it goes. Now, this one in Maine, the person shot was 26. He was a Colombian national. Initial reports said that he was work authorized. He had a social security number. He was shot in Biddeford. The initial report said that they were watching someone else and that he wasn't the target. And for whatever reason, they initiated a stop and he ran. Now, this is the vehicle that he was driving when he was shot. All of the rounds are right there in the windshield, which tells me he was running down an officer who shot in self-defense. If there were bullet holes in some other part of the vehicle, maybe they'd have a case. But either way, if you're being stopped by the police, comply. I mean, it's really that simple. It's really that simple. If you don't comply, if you try to run them over, if you pull a gun on them, if you pull a knife on them, your chances of survival go down dramatically. It's just that plain and simple. Now, according to the DHS, he fled and then weaponized the vehicle towards an agent who, in fearing for his life, opened fire. Now, again, this is under investigation. We'll see we'll see which account is true. We'll see if he was here legally and But then why didn't he just stop? If he was here legally, if he was authorized to, or he had a social security number, all of that, he was a legal resident, then you know better. Just stop. Deal with it. Now, as a result of these recent shootings, Homeland Security Secretary Markwayne Mullin has ordered a pause on vehicle stops unless it's a very high danger target. I think that's a mistake. From what I understand, these agents are highly trained in vehicle stops, and because of the excuse is they need more training. Most of these ICE agents come from, or I shouldn't say most, a lot of these agents come from local law enforcement backgrounds. They have training in how to conduct vehicle stops. So Markwayne Mullin is kind of disappointing me a little bit as DHS secretary. He's made some questionable decisions since taking that office. So I think this might be another one of those, but we'll see. Because this just takes another tool away from the agents in order to get rid of these illegal aliens, and makes it that much more dangerous, that much more time consuming. They're gonna have to get a warrant to go into these people's houses now. There's no need for a warrant, a judicial warrant on a vehicle stop. So there's that. Inside the homes, people have more access to weapons, which makes it more dangerous. So, I mean, it's unfortunate that these illegal aliens are choosing to put themselves in a situation where they end up shot. But at the end of the day, it's either them or the officers going home to their families. And sounds harsh, but the cops go home to their families. And the people who don't put themselves in these positions. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Now, of course, the left-wing lunatics are all up in arms, and this is giving more fuel to the abolish ICE crowd, and giving more fuel to the people who are trying to oust Susan Collins from her Senate seat. We'll see what happens. We'll see how that goes. But, and again, don't get me wrong. It is sad. It is sad that somebody had to lose their life. But again, if you put yourself in that position, you kind of get what you get, don't you? Again, if he was a legal resident and there was no issue with him being here, all he had to do was comply. And the bullet holes in the windshield tell me that he didn't. All right. Since we got some time, let's get into this Nolan Wells investigation. It's not something I would normally get into, but because of who now is involved, and because it is shaping up to be another Carmelo Anthony situation, I have to, because I've said this before, and I've said this online in relation to this. Talking about race is not something that I like to do. It's not something that I relish. But they're making it so difficult not to talk about it anymore. And with this tragedy and these race hustlers inserting themselves into the situation and all the money that they're raising as a result of it, you have to talk about it. And I'm talking about Nolan Wells. He was 18 years old. He went missing on July 4th after a boat trip to an island called Horn Island off the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And he went with a bunch of friends, and his body was found a few days later. The preliminary investigation so far is saying that it was an accidental drowning, no foul play. But Ben Crump and Al Sharpton have inserted themselves into this investigation, and they are seeing this as a way to make some cash. The GoFundMe that was established for the family is closing in on $800,000, I believe. And I'm not really sure what it's for. I guess somebody's got to pay for these independent autopsies, and somebody's got to pay for Ben Crump's time and Al Sharpton's time, I guess. But what? let's just get into it. Let's get into this. This is Ben Crump's interview. I don't think I'll play the whole thing, but I'll play enough for you to get the idea. And if you're familiar with Ben Crump, it won't take much.
Just from where you sit, what are the biggest unanswered questions so far about this case?
Obviously, the biggest question is what happened to Nolan Wells. I think the reason this case has caught such fire is because they see the pictures, they see the video, and they're saying, hold on, you're trying to tell us just accept this an accident and sweep it under the rug? His mother, Christine, his father, Elmo, say, no, they will not allow that to happen. His friends, his community. I mean,
I get parents wanting answers. What parent wouldn't want answers? I get that. But to make this a race issue, just to me is ridiculous. They're saying he went on a trip with all white friends, which is not true. His best friend was also there, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. Where I grew up, all of my friends were white. It just is what it is. And I'll be very honest, the fact that in this day and age, this post-Obama age, a black kid in Mississippi with an all-white group of friends is pretty shocking. It's pretty shocking because the fact that Ben Crump is involved tells me that there was probably some influence in this kid's life that emphasized race to a certain degree. And of course, I'm speculating. I don't know that, but given the climate that we're in right now, stands to reason to me. But let's continue.
he was a good kid. He was beloved. He was a college athlete. He had everything going for him. And so to go on that island for 4th of July celebration and then not to come back is what is concerning everybody, especially when you hear the contradictions.
Of course, it's concerning to everybody. Nobody wants to see anyone drown, anyone lose their life in these types of circumstances, but it happens. And of course, it's not just Ben Crump. Al Sharpton and his National Action Network have also insinuated themselves into this thing. Let's take a look at that.
He was one black with 3 young white men who happened to end up with his phone, happened to end up with his keys. Then there's just.
And here's the thing, it wasn't just those 4, it was a whole group of people. They just happened to focus on that one picture of him with these 3 white kids.
Too many questions that they should not be closing the investigation. Now,
the investigation isn't closed. Nobody has closed any investigation. The last I looked, the sheriff has said that the investigation is ongoing. Nobody's closed anything. So what are you doing? Well, you're making money. That's what you're doing.
Brooklyn. So I'm a little different than some of y'all. I was built different. My nose is out here, my eyes are here, my brain is here, which means some things I could smell before I could see and before I can figure out. This does not smell right. So some people are saying,
whatever. You still haven't figured it out, dude. Just unbelievable. Now, the investigation is still ongoing. It hasn't been closed. Ben Crump, he's a race hustling lawyer. Al Sharpton, he's a race hustler from way back. We know this. The GoFundMe is up to $800,000 or something like that, maybe even more. Just because this kid had white friends does not mean that he didn't get blind drunk at a party and find himself in a situation where he ended up drowning. He's not the first. He won't be the last. It happens. 18-year-old kids, especially in a group like that, make terrible decisions. Am I blaming him for it? No. It's just one of those things that happens. As sad as it is, I feel terrible for his family and his friends. It is a horrific situation all the way around. And Al Sharpton and Ben Crump are not making it any better. They're giving this family this false hope. And I don't even know what they'd be hoping for. Their son is dead. Are they hoping that somebody killed him? I mean, to me, it makes no sense. His best friend, who was there, spoke out. He didn't speak out on camera, but he gave an interview on Good Morning America. So let's check that out real quick.
I just know I've lost my best friend.
This morning, a friend of Nolan Wells, who was with the 18-year-old the day he was last seen alive, is sharing what he says happened during a July 4th boat trip to an isolated barrier island off the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Trayston Shepard declined to speak with us on camera because he says he and his friends are getting threats.
We did no wrong here, and we don't understand how we're getting so much hate behind it. We all cared and loved Nolan, and nobody wanted to see Nolan die. Nobody wanted to see his life be taken so short.
Shepard addressed this viral video that investigators have been studying. Wells's parents worried it showed their son involved in a confrontation, but Shepard said that's him, not Wells.
That's the video I'm referring to. That's me yelling.
Shepard says he took a boat back from Horn Island in the late afternoon, but Wells stayed behind with a girl he had met.
They met that day, and it was kind of one of those things. It did come off that day that he really did like her, but that was the only time they've ever hung out, was at Horn Island on July 4th.
Investigators believe Wells drowned and say there were no immediate signs of foul play.
It's a sad situation all the way around. His friends are hurting. I think these race hustlers are just inflaming the situation, making it harder for them to deal with this loss. There's no good is going to come of this. No good is going to come of this. Their son is dead, and these race hustlers, these grievance merchants, are just prolonging the grief, prolonging the agony, instead of letting the investigation play out. Now, if the investigation does conclude and there are still discrepancies, there are still unanswered questions, well, okay, then maybe I could see this, but otherwise, this is just profiting off of a family's grief, which is something that they do quite well. All right. One last quick thing before I get you guys out of here. There was, this is something I came across, again, last minute as I was prepping for the show. And James Tallarico said something so profoundly stupid, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm probably gonna end up getting deeper into it next time. But he made a statement about the Second Amendment, and I just want to show you guys this. Oh boy, yeah, just check this out, and then we'll talk about it.
I was in the classroom when the Sandy Hook shooting occurred, and I thought every day about what would happen to my students if a gunman were to enter our school. And so it was a visceral reaction that I had to that shooting in particular. And I've been proud to take steps as a lawmaker to address this epidemic of gun violence, introducing gun safety legislation myself, and always supporting any gun safety bill that came onto the floor of the House. A lot of politicians like to talk about the Second Amendment. Very few have actually read the Second Amendment, because if they did, they would know that the words well regulated are right there in the text of the amendment itself. And so, like any right that we have in our
Yes, well regulated is in the text. And what does it say right after that? Militia. Who do we know is the militia? The militia is everyone. The founders made that clear. What else does it say? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So why is he picking on that one particular phrase and just completely ignoring the rest? Well, because that one particular phrase helps his argument for taking guns away from everybody. And well-regulated at the time of the drafting of the Second Amendment did not mean what we mean when we say well-regulated today, or what they mean when they think of well-regulated. Well-regulated in the time of the writing of the Second Amendment meant, and I've said this, I don't even know how many times now, in good working order. The firearms needs to be in good working order. The members of the militia, which was all of the people between the ages of 18 and 45, I believe, back then. All the men between 18 and 45 needed to have their weapons in good working order. That's what that means. So for him to sit up there and talk about how people haven't read the Second Amendment, well, neither have you, obviously. But of course, he's a leftist, so he's going to pick and choose all of the different things that make his argument for him, or that he thinks support his argument. But if he goes into a debate about the Second Amendment and that's what he's got, he's going to get smoked. And he doesn't even have to debate anyone who's a very skilled debater, just somebody who actually knows the Constitution and knows the Second Amendment. He's going to get smoked. These people are, they can't stand. They cannot stand citizenry that is independent, that doesn't depend on them for their safety, because they can't control somebody who doesn't depend on them. I came across something about food and seedless fruits and vegetables, which we're actually going to talk about next time, because that's another issue where they're trying to control everything. And I'll just leave that as a tease for next time, because we are just about out of time. All right, y'all, I am Big E, and you have been watching or listening to the Mission Ready Men Briefing right here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch our great lineup of hosts. We have Sackhead Sean with The Edge of Liberty every Monday and Wednesday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. He's been out for a little while, but he will be back, I am sure of it. And then we have Jersey Joe, the Reaver of Common Sense, every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. He's also been out for a little while, taking a little bit of time off, but he will be back as well. And then we have BZ and the Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The saloon is open tonight, every Tuesday and Thursday at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. He will be on in about a half an hour from now, so be sure to check him out. And then we have Lyle Armstrong with Beer and Bullstein every Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. I'm not sure when he's going to be back. I know that he had some things to deal with, and so he has been taking some time off. He was a guest on BZ's show last week, but I'm not sure when he'll be back, but he will be back as well. I'm sure of that, just not sure when. But that's going to do it for this briefing. We're not just here to talk into the ether. We're here to equip Christian men and spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and carry the banner of faith, freedom, and hope into the next generation. If anything that we said here today resonated, please don't just watch, but share it. Share it with another guy who needs to hear this. And if you want to wear what you stand for, head over to missionreadymen.com, click Shop 7 Armors. Check out all the great designs we have over there about bold faith, true grit, and unapologetic patriotism. And while you're there, You can also check out the SHR shop and check out all the merch for the guys in their shows. And you can also still get, I believe, we still have a few 250 Reasons to Read Source Documents t-shirts in celebration of our 250th anniversary as a great nation. But that's going to do it for us. So remember, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.